I was perusing the Carboot when out of the corner of my eye, I saw something I couldn't believe. An item that money cannot buy. This truly is an Xbox Holy Grail piece.
Get pick up! Building the games room! Run tricks! Live game hunting!
Hello again folks and welcome back to another live game hunting video, and this week we are once again heading to the late one, the 11 AM start Carboot, because who else just enjoys having a lay-in on a Saturday and still being able to go to a Carboot? One of the main reasons I love going to the Carboot is you never know what you're going to find, and in this week's episode we find an Xbox item that normally I would say money cannot buy, but this time we secure an absolute holy grail Xbox item which I had never seen before and quite possibly will never see again. If you're an Xbox fan, you do not want to miss this week's episode. Just before we head to the Carboot, I want to remind you folks, if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and please subscribe, as I put new videos out every Saturday live at 5, as well as bonus content throughout the week, and I really want you folks along for the ride. Now, it's 11 AM, it's Carboot time. Here we go then, the 11 AM Carboot, and I must admit I am running a little bit late today because the Carboot was absolutely rammed, but let's get straight to it. We have some PSP UMD movies here, and now while I really enjoy collecting for the PSP, I tend to stray away from these movies, but if I can get them cheap or normally as part of a bundle, I will keep them. But let me know in the comments down below if you yourself collect UMD movies. This is exactly what you expect to see at the Carboot, a box with a third-party PlayStation 2 controller which is filthy and an empty PlayStation 2 box. Off to a fantastic start here. I've always said if I did not have a games room, I would probably have a Star Wars themed room, as there is just infinite Star Wars merchandise and most of it is pretty cool. I don't really like these smaller Black Series figures. I think they're just a bit small and don't really have the detail you'd need of a figure. These bigger Black Series figures are absolutely incredible, and I've been tempted to collect these for many times. There is just so much Star Wars stuff. Like, you've got like brand new figures here with like the Black Series and some of these kind of cheap Force Awakens figures. And you can see behind the kind of classic 99 trilogy figures, but I did pass on these today. I did go through a little bit of a period of buying all these kind of weird knockoff consoles because if nothing else, normally these are quite amusing for about 5 minutes, and they're normally just cheap knockoffs of some of your favourite kind of classic games, but I have slowly stopped picking these up just because they take up a lot of room and in general are just terrible. Okay, we've been at this Carboot long enough to say let's get stuck into the boxes of DVDs. Couple of loose PlayStation 2 games here. Primal's actually a really solid game, and as soon as I see video games, I'm going to jump into these boxes of DVDs and just check there's no other games hiding. Now, of course, 90% of the time there's no other games, but the thing is, you never know. This is the kind of thing you really need to get stuck into at the Carboot, not pink unicorns, but like boxes full of DVDs. Like Call of Duty Game of the Year is for the PC, so I'm going to pass on this one. Coraline used to trade in for decent money. I wonder if around Halloween that will go back up in value again. Trilogy box sets and box sets of multiple films from the same kind of series normally trade in pretty well, but nothing to see here. Here we have a Carboot reseller, and to be honest, I have absolutely no problem with resellers because at the end of the day, sometimes they can make my life a bit easier, as they will go out, find these games and just mark the prices up ever so slightly for you, but sometimes you can catch them slipping and make a decent deal or kind of build a bundle, but unfortunately today there's not a great deal to see other than Wii games. Like I said earlier, I went through a real period of picking up these kind of plug-and-play devices. I think in the late 90s, early 2000s, these were all the rage. They were just a cheap way to go back and play some of these old-school games. You can see like Tetris here, Space Invaders, there's an EA Sports one, Pac-Man, and to be honest, most of these aren't too bad, especially if you play them on an old-school CRT TV, normally because they have the AV-like inputs, but if I can pick these up cheap, I will probably pick these up. I think these were £4 or £5 each, so I did pass on these. I do kind of have a little bit of a soft spot in my heart for these, but at the end of the day, again, they are one of those things that just take a lot of space and more often than not aren't fantastic, and because a lot of these had the back screwed in, I couldn't check to see if they had any battery damage, but there was some really cool stuff on this stand just in general. Some really nice comics, loads of trading cards, just some really cool stuff, really good to see. This is what I love to see at the Carboot, absolutely stacks of stock. This was a kind of collector's stand, and he was just filling out some of his collection, like his doubles, the stuff he doesn't really want to keep. And this is a great way to build a bundle, which, as I have said a billion times, is the best way to make a good deal at the Carboot. And there is absolutely stacks of stuff here. We are talking Xbox to Xbox One, PlayStation 2 to PlayStation 4, and loads of Nintendo stuff. But normally when it's boxes like this, I'm looking for the weird stuff, the rarities, stuff like these demo discs and little weird things like this, the kind of stuff you don't see all the time. A lot of this stuff is going to be fairly foddery, like, you know, you're looking at your 50p a pound games that will trade into CX, but when you bundle these up, you can make yourself a nice little bundle and normally get a decent price. So I'm kind of flicking through here, trying to find things that kind of stick out, things that I've never seen before, games I don't see very often, like this game, Wanted, for the Xbox 360. Not exactly an expensive game, but just a game I don't see very often. And as I've said again a billion times recently, now is a great time to collect for the Xbox 360 because you can just pick games up so cheap. I think this game is like £2.50 in CEX, but it's the kind of game you can pick up all day, every day for £1 at a Carboot. But today here we are trying to make a bundle of some weird stuff. Like, this is going to be a very eclectic bundle. You can see that I've picked up a Spectrum game. That's because when he's a CIB, like, I love the artwork of these, and you just don't see these very often. It's not exactly a game I'm probably going to go back to play, but aesthetically, just the artwork is just so retro and so cool. But this is the thing, when you have these boxes like this, you just have to get stuck in. And I think I went over these 2 or 3 times just because I don't want to miss anything. Like, I picked up a Wii U game here. I always forget which is the last Call of Duty game I'm looking for on the Wii U, and it is Call of Duty Ghosts. But as I said, there's a little bit of everything here. Look, we have Switch games, like one of those weird kind of Switch games I think you normally see in like B&M, like at the counter, like the cheap one, which is like a download coded steering wheel for like £10. But I'm just getting stuck in here. You can see I'm just finding more and more weird stuff, like cassette-based games. This just doesn't end. I was quite tempted to pick up The Witcher, but I did pass on that one. Moving on to yet another box, and we have even more stuff in here. When going through absolutely massive stacks like this, it's really good to try and look out for games that you can pick up cheaper to flip into CX. And a classic is Lego games. Lego Batman for the Nintendo Wii isn't a fantastic one, but normally, as a rule of thumb, if you can pick up cheap Wii Lego games, you can trade them in pretty decently. I can't believe there's even PlayStation 1 games here. That's an empty box stand. There's not really anything in there, but you know, oh, there's something in there, but you never know what's going to be hidden in any of these boxes. That's why you have to get stuck in. Here we have it then, from the start of the video, this absolute Xbox Holy Grail. And I would say this is a Holy Grail, as you just can't go out and buy something like this. Obviously, I am going to buy it today, but this is the kind of thing that turns up once in a blue moon. This original Xbox display.
You know. Well, I don't think the fresh and cheese work is, because it's one of those sort of link lights that was in there. And I was going to put like an LED strip in there, really, but that's could really do with new light.
Do you know if the strip works? Oh no, I haven't got a strip.
I don't know. I don't think it does. I think that the actual lamp fitting is actually probably damaged. So yeah, I was going to put a row of LEDs in the top instead.
Yeah,
to aim down. Probably work better than the fluorescent bulb, to be honest.
Is that the price you got on it? 12?
Do a little bit more. I mean, 10. Yeah. It's proper original.
Yeah.
Blockbuster video or something like that. You just hang it over there.
Would you go 8 on it at all?
£8.50.
Yeah, if you got some change.
Yeah, I got some change. Yeah.
From one amazing piece to another, check out these PlayStation slippers. Unfortunately, these weren't in my size, but we do have a couple of DS games here, and when it comes to some of these DS games, if I can just pick them up cheap, I'm going to grab them. I think these were all 50p each. I did only grab one of these. I was going to pick up FIFA or Pets, but I did pick up this poker game because, to be honest, I don't mind a poker game, and playing on DS is a nice little time killer. I'm always on the lookout for retro toys when I'm at the Carboot, and I think this is a toy that everyone who was born in the 80s wanted, the Tracy Island toy, but this one has definitely seen better days. It doesn't seem like any electronics work, and I am very much guessing all the toys in here are just parts. Now here's something you don't see every day, an Xbox One Elite controller. How much was your controller, buddy?
I've been asking 70, it could be 60, it's seriously good condition, it's all there, it's working, it's mine.
Yeah.
I've even left my batteries in it for you, but it's in great, you know, got around the butchers, it's all in there. got your original pad to sit it on.
Oh, nice.
Everything's there. Yeah, it works a dream.
That controller was in absolutely fantastic condition, but I did decide to pass just because, as a general rule of thumb, if it's not super cheap, I won't really buy electronics at the car boot. But something I was very tempted by was just, I like the oddities, you know that by now, this Xbox 360 transfer pack, just because it was brand new in the packet, and I love these kind of sealed old items, that kind of new old stock. Really good selection of games here, just absolutely loads, but sadly a lot of these were kind of on the higher end of the reseller kind of price tag, so I did pass on a lot of these, but there was some really good games here. And at the end of the day, even if you can get a lot of these games just that little bit cheaper than CX, this is a great way to build a game collection, especially if you're collecting for some of the older consoles like the PlayStation 2. There is always so much PS2 stuff at the car boots, and my wife is very impressed by this Simon optics. Like, you know, we have PlayStation VR 2, but that looked next level. You can see there's some DJ Hero stuff down here. These boxes are always good for digging in, but normally only if you can really get a really good bundle. And unfortunately this time I couldn't agree on a bundle price just because our prices were a little bit apart from each other. But like I said, this is a great way to build a collection, buying bundles like this at the car boot and just picking up games like the PlayStation 2 or games like Dynasty Warriors here. I've never seen this one before, and normally, as I've said, I have a general rule of thumb: if I see a game cheap on a console I've never seen it before, I will probably pick it up. I did pass on this one, as I think he was asking £3 or £4, and at the time I didn't want to check my CX app, but I did think that was a little overpriced. Here we have an amazing retro item. No, not a little electronic game. These Walker's Star Wars Tazos. Let me know in the comments down below if you collected these, and more importantly, did you manage to get the complete set? I remember it being a real pain getting the last few of these to finish the binder, and to be honest, more often than not, when I find these binders, they are complete. I do have one, so I did pass. Heading on, some more modern retro now. I think this was a remake of the board game Ghost Castle, which I played it back in the day, is an awesome board game. It's not super expensive to buy now, so I did pass on it at the car boot, but I love when they bring back some of these retro board games in a modern form, just because more often than not, with a lot of these board games, they'll often have pieces missing. Moving on, and can you really ever have enough Tyrannosaurus Rex figures? I think I've got like 7 or 8 T-Rex figures from the Jurassic World franchise now. I just keep picking them up, as well as TMNT figures. There's just so much cool modern stuff on here. Like, this is probably one of the best T-Rexes I've seen recently from the Jurassic World toy line. Of course, my favourite is the original T-Rex from the original Jurassic Park toy line, but this store didn't just have some cool toys, it also had stacks of video games, including one of the biggest selections of Game Boy Advance games I've ever seen. And again, I was very tempted to pick up this Jurassic Park game, but I did pass, as this was a reseller, and unfortunately a lot of their prices were exactly on the money, which there's nothing wrong with that, but a lot of this stuff isn't exactly what I'm looking for. Yes, they did have some Platinum games, but unfortunately ones I already have in the collection, as well as the Mega Drive games. But it's cool to see some of this stuff at the car boot, because it's not very often that I see decent retro stuff, especially like complete in the box Mega Drive games. Like, Cool Spot may not be the most valuable Mega Drive game of all time, but it's getting rarer to find this stuff. Yes, you still see some PlayStation 1 games, but these are in pretty good nick, and some decent titles, you know, Gran Turismo, Final Fantasy, and then we had the absolute motherload of PS2 games here as well. Moving on from the absolute motherload of PlayStation 2 games, we had the motherload of Xbox 360 and Xbox One games. Of course, this was another reseller, and again, unfortunately, a lot of these prices were exactly on the money, but the absolute stacks of games here, like, this can be really overwhelming when games are laid out like this, and you may catch them slipping, but for me, at the car boot, I'm kind of normally on a time constraint, and unfortunately, I did pass on all of these. A lonely PS4 game here, and sometimes when a store only has one game, you can normally get a pretty decent bargain, so let's find out. These are one hand. How much is your game, please?
Right hand.
Not the greatest bargain of all time, but not the worst offer. But moving on, there was still loads to see at this car boot. I was actually surprised how quiet this car boot got very quickly. Like, at the start, it was absolutely rammed. Like, 45 minutes in, it was pretty much dead, but there were still things to be found, like this, a TMNT vintage 1995 action figure, For 50p, this is a great way to pick up some retro toys, and for 50p, I'm very, very happy to pick this one up. They're quite cool. Trading cards. I'm a massive fan of these kind of vintage trading cards. I'm not the biggest fan of Harry Potter, so I did pass on these ones, especially quite possibly the most common PlayStation 1 game of all time. If you can think of a game you see more often than Harry Potter, please let me know in the comments down below. Okay, thank you. So there's set cards that are in there.
Yeah, it'll be numbers 1 to 90, which is the base set in each one. So
moving on from Harry Potter, looks like somebody was attempting to sell their car keys and maybe house keys. And moving on again, a couple of 3DS games. And if these Nintendo games had been cheaper, I would have probably picked these up, as you can flip these quite nicely into CX for that trade-in credit. Obviously, if there's ever a pile of DVDs, I'm going to check these as well to see if there's anything worth trading in. And if you can get them cheap, Nintendo's a great one. So we were coming to the end of an absolutely amazing day of car booting, and I was blown away by finding that absolutely incredible Xbox Lite. And here's something I definitely keep an eye on at the moment: Wii U stuff. This is one that I've kind of held off buying. I did pass it today because it was a little bit expensive, but I think in the next few months, Wii U stuff is going to go up in value very, very quickly. And a cheap Wii U game to pick up, if you ever see it, is this one, Just Dance 4. I picked this up for £1 and it trades in for £5. A really great end to this great car boot. That was the late one in Aylsham then. I'd had a nice lay in, I'd been to a car boot, it was only just past midday, and we've got some awesome bits for the collection. So let's go back to the games room. Here we are then, back in the games room, and let's jump straight into these pickups. And I've said it a million times, even in this video, bundling is the best way to get a good deal at the car boot. And I picked up this bundle of bits here for about £5. So first off, we have this Xbox 360 DVD. So this was one of the unofficial Xbox magazines, and instead of getting demos, they had DVDs, but this is GTA 5, so I thought it was pretty cool. Next up, we have these playable cheats for the PlayStation 2. And the one that really sticks out to me here is Resident Evil Outbreak File 2, because it would be quite nice to replay that one and to be never infected, have infinite bullets, infinite health, and max collection points. Next up, we have a Sinclair and ZX Spectrum Science Horizon survival game. And I literally just picked this up because I love the artwork, and to be honest, I just don't see these Spectrum games very often. Then, slightly more up to date, we have Wanted Weapons of Fate for the Xbox 360. It's a great time to collect for the Xbox 360, it's super cheap, and this is a game I don't see very often, and a game I haven't played, but if I can pick it up cheap, I'm definitely intrigued by this one. You know, you can curve bullets in this. If you remember this film, it was a little bit weird. It had that guy from Transformers in, and what's most interesting about this one is rated 18, so definitely excited to jump into that one. Finally, little bonus item, we have this Nintendo 3DS Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time 3D kind of slipcase. Now, I don't know if this is one they sold separately or like one of the Club Nintendo like things you could mail away for. So if you do know, let me know in the comments. But £5 for all these bits, great little car boot bundle. I love my retro and modern toys, and when I saw this Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle toy from 1995 for just 50p, I had to pick it up. And this one still works. You kind of like just flick the legs like that and it transforms into, I think it's a samurai or something. A very cool little item, and you know, when it comes to retro toy collecting, it can be very expensive. To be able to pick this one up for 50p is a bit of a bargain. This is the kind of thing you love to find at the car boot. The normally money can't buy items, the stuff that was not available to the public, that was normally for game stores or just larger stores that sold video games. Stuff like this original Xbox display light. This would have been hung above the cabinet, so people would just, it would catch people's eye. They would know they were buying Xbox games. And this is a thing of absolute beauty, and this is going to become somewhat of a project piece for myself. So you'll notice inside here I've taken out all the electronics. That's because this would have been connected side to side with other display lights on the top of cabinets. Now I'm going to have to try and find a bulb for this, and I have given that job to a friend of mine who is an electrician, and hopefully I can get this back up and running. Also at the top it would have had a chain, so it could have been hung above the store. But it's just an absolute thing of beauty. I think this is going to look absolutely amazing, like above my original Xbox games. And worst case scenario, if I cannot get this working electronically, I'm just going to put an LED strip in the top. Obviously it'll be green. This is just, it really excites me. These are the kind of items I love to have in the games room. You just can't go out and buy items like this. Like, I have no idea where you'd even start to find something like this other than like an old store clearance. Is an absolutely fantastic piece, and to pick it up, I think it was for £8.50, is just one of the many reasons I love car booting. There we have it then, folks. That is another episode of Live Game Hunting in the Bag, and another absolutely amazing car boot. And that Xbox Lite is seriously a once in a lifetime find, and is now one of the absolute best items in my original Xbox collection. But let me know in the comments down below, what is your once in a lifetime find? Something you'll never find again that's the absolute pride of your collection. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, hit that like button, subscribe, and as always, keep playing the game. See you all soon.